Roman, you actually were already an established artist when you discovered the computer, or discovered the computer as a tool.
Yes.
When did that happen?
I would say it first happened for me in 1969, and this happened when I was in Minneapolis, and the occasion was to present a public lecture on medieval manuscripts. And I had the opportunity to film a computer monitor at UNIVAC in St. Paul, Minnesota. So we had the television people bring a camera, and I monitored the filming, and when I saw this event, a cube flopping to infinity and back, it was an algorithmic structure, I thought, well, that's for me, we're going to do that. And I never dreamed that I actually would, but I have. That was it. That was 1969. I followed a course in Fortran at Control Data Institute, and that was the beginning for me.
So that was the incentive, right? That was the incentive?
I would think that was one of them. Behind this was the fact that I always was attracted to technology. In 1970, I was attracted to the questions of emerging new technologies and the arts. I received a grant from the Bush Foundation, and I studied with you. I spent a period of time at MIT as a Bush Fellow, working with Yuri Kepish, who was the author of The New Landscape. I admired Yuri's work very much. He was very well known for his work. He was Hungarian, and he had founded this Center for Advanced Visual Studies at MIT. That's the precedent. That was preceded what MIT now does in digital. But in those days, digital was just emerging. And Yuri Kepish was the front edge, and I went there to work with him. And that, of course, I did a report for MIT, and that was the beginning. But
right.
I did not have access to a large computer. So that delayed when I actually had my own studio computer and could begin to generate my own work.
So what did you find artistically intriguing to work with this medium? Why would you go as an artist getting involved? Of course, the computer was an interesting tool, but as an artist, that was really unusual at the time.
Well, yes, it was, and the question is not easily answered from a single point of view. I was sufficiently interested and could see the possibility of translating some of my ideas that I had worked with, to translate those into a code that could be used by a computer to generate work. And my first major work was the Magic Hand of Chance. And it did exactly that. It began to generate imagery. It also worked with word things and as well. I created dictionaries and created titles, short phrases. Many of the things that were explored by people who were early on interested in artificial intelligence. And that attracted me too. I think like for me, I've always been interested in the evolution of human consciousness, and I saw the computing technology and emerging digital technologies as a way, as a kind of a prosthesis or an extension of the human mind. And how could I get my art mind coded to drive that machine to make the art? That was the question. And that, of course, was a driving question. And it was, as last night I was talking with some of my colleagues, Frieder and others, about how arid the landscape was for us in those days. You could imagine how it was for people like Frieder. Well, my colleagues at the College of Art thought most of them wouldn't have. They rejected this as an idea. How could you do art this way? There was resistance. And the landscape was arid. There was no place in the art world. That's one reason why in 1988 was my first chance to really communicate internationally. And I was able to come to Utrecht. I gave a paper then, my paper on epigenetic painting, software as genotype, and it was extremely well received. Roger Molina was absolutely thrilled to get his hands on it for Leonardo. And what it was an opportunity for people to come together from disparate places and come together and begin to organize those people who were interested in art and technology and the emerging technologies. It was not just Ars Electronica, it was happening with different groups throughout the world. We had a group on the West Coast that I joined. We had a group on the East Coast that I joined. We had the small computers in the arts. We had the art and technology people in California. So these groups sprang up and began to consolidate, and that's how the IZEA group formed. And I was on the board then, so I helped that happen. So those were part of the things that I think gave us support.
So meanwhile, of course, this field has really broadened up, and we have a lot of different kind of possibilities working with the computer. But you have concentrated since more than 30 years on this old-fashioned machine, a plotter. You do plotter drawings.
Yes,
Why did you stay with plotter drawings? And what we still see from you here, even it looks like painting, it's done with a plotter, it's programmed. Why did you stay with a plotter for such a long time and didn't change into newer technologies?
Okay, well, that question is a wonderful question. It drives right to the heart of one of the problems I have with the pace of change in our culture. When I was teaching, I was always torn between the avant-garde, the new, and the traditions that I really loved, namely painting, printmaking, all of those arts I had studied. I loved paper, all of those things. There were two things that happened for me. One was I had already worked with technology as art in the sense like my magic hand of chance. When I first exhibited it, I had a 26-inch Sony XBR, I had a PC, the best I could get at the time, and we were operating. I ran it for a month, but in an exhibition, it was an anniversary exhibition at the College of Art. Well, what happens with these technologies is sometimes they fail in the context of the work. You have to have the technology to experience it. Someone has to know how to do it. All of those things were there. I came to realize at a point that what I really loved in the end was to have that art object. So I set out to use high technology to generate a work that would exist independent and on its own. And once the work was finished, there was no technology required to experience it. You could take it with you, you could hang it on your wall, and it was in the tradition of art. I still believe that is an important, that is valuable for us as humans because we have, in a way we relate to them. So that was one aspect. I've always been interested in the concept of the master of a technology. A Shufa master in China, a master printmaker, a master bookbinder, a master calligrapher. And I wanted to be a master pen-plotting artist who wrote code, and I would drive this machine and I would make the best pen plots you could ever make. If it took me 50 years, and there's enough to explore with a pen and ink and a paintbrush and rag paper, that's enough for anyone in one lifetime. And I have only scratched this, hey, that's a pun, scratched the surface.
You definitely succeeded on that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Okay.